Yes, but yes, thank you.
Thank you. Diaco.
Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for the chance to ask my question. Dalit, I really can connect to everything that you said, because you mentioned that you're from Beirut in the Middle East, and from the migrant background. I'm from Kurdistan, I'm Kurdish, so I come from a background of people who have been living in 4 different countries with their own ethnic identity while not being recognized anywhere in the world. In 4 of those countries, basically, in 3 of them, you cannot be recognized as a language. In Turkey, if you speak in Kurdish, you up till like 5 years, 6 years ago, you would go to jail, even for writing a letter, an alphabet letter in Kurdish alphabet, which does not exist in Turkish language. So I'm not, I don't know, I'm not quite sure that I'm asking a question. I'm more making a comment. And is that for the people like me, people who do not have a state, we are totally lost in the map of communication right now. Most of the game of communication academia that's played right now is in the field of nation states. Even in the study that you mentioned like how many studies do not exist from, for example, India or from Mexico, from other places. But even if I do something, I write something about, for example, Kurdish people in Iran, still, it will be considered an Iranian things most of the time, being referred to as Persian studies and stuff like that. I'm totally missed here. I do not feel connected to most of the research that is done there, as long as it's in the workplace or in the field of nation states. So how do you think that, if I put it in the form of a question, that we can sort of support stateless communities like Tibetans in China, like Tamils in Sri Lanka, like Kurdish people in Iran, in the Middle East, to be a part of these communication and use communication basically to help them establish and feel and express their cultural identities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And that experience that you referenced, of course, is very salient to me as well as a Palestinian. In fact, so I mean, the Palestinians have no national identity. All Palestinians, unless they have citizenship in some other world, are exactly as you mentioned. Certainly, all the refugees, all the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and so that experience of invisibility is a very salient one to me. So thank you for noting that and reflecting that. I guess what as you were talking, what I was thinking of is what are the two thoughts. One is so much of the identity work. Well, I wonder how much of the identity work that I'm familiar with has the same problem as that you reference, which is that identities are typically tied to either, what is the identity of someone who's stateless? How does that operate in their day-to-day lives? How does that operate in terms of their certainty about their identity? So there's some work, there's an uncertainty identity theory that's out there that talks about how certain we are about our identities, and that's often tied to various life experiences, et cetera. That's a pretty useful theory of identity, but I'm wondering how much that's been applied to the types of communities that you're referencing, and what work might that theory do, or how can we change that theory if it's not? Because certainly what you speak to from my own lens of uncertainty, that's where I went immediately. There's so much uncertainty. There's chronic uncertainty in the experience of folks who really don't have a state identity, and they face challenges that are nowhere in our literature. because we so rarely study them. I give an example very, very quickly, unrelated to this, but in terms of why it's so important to diversify our undergraduates, our graduates, our faculty, et cetera. One of the areas that's absent in interpersonal communication research, or mostly absent, is research about family discussions about race. There was an undergrad at UCSB, a research assistant of mine, who then went to Montana and then went to Nebraska. Now is assistant professor at the University of Georgia, who's really doing some of this work. But what we know is in the African American communities, in Black families, and in other families of color in the United States, let alone the world, conversations about race, about identity, are essential as buffers to the stress of racism. It's a day-to-day conversation. Certainly growing up Palestinian in Beirut, my identity was a regular, pretty much, I mean, maybe not day-to-day, but a common reference. And because my dad and mom understood that I would be facing certain types of racism, bias, et cetera, especially as we move to the United States, but even in Beirut. Yet that's absent. That a critically important conversation to so much of the world population is absent from our literature and interpersonal communication. Why? Because it's primarily white Americans that don't really have this conversation. It's not a relevant conversation to them because that's not what they're going to face so parents don't have to.
I think he's frozen.
Did we lose our speaker?
Thought it was me.
Definitely frozen.
Steven, can you like give him a
Amazing,
quick
Rich.
no?
There he is.
Back.
You're back. You froze for a second. We lost him. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Oh, I got cut off.
Yep, you were saying something wonderful, and
sorry.
we lost you.
Oh, sorry. It's yeah, sorry about that.
You're saying something about with certain with white families, it doesn't make when they were talking about it doesn't make sense. Then we lost you.
Oh, all the way all back there. Okay. I was only saying that the reason that we don't have more literature on conversations about race is because we don't have the majority of our faculty, grad students, et cetera, in communication who are able to publish in those premier journals, those top tier journals, don't in fact have that experience, so therefore they don't study it, therefore they don't blah, blah, blah. And so and then, if we do bring in literature, we get reviewers that say this isn't relevant or whatever else. So this is part of the reason why we need structural change. So, so to your point, I think we need to think about theories, concepts that would be productive in understanding the experience of those communities, and there are communities that are very dear to my heart. We need to think critically at every theory we're looking at to think, because I give you and I know I give one other quick example. When I studied uncertainty, I read Berger's uncertainty reduction theory. That was in my first class. And Berger was all about uncertainty being bad. I was a colleague with, went to grad school with Dale Brashears, who was my office mate, who was really challenging some of that. He found that in fact, uncertainty sometimes is a good thing. But it was, he specifically was studying HIV patients and the fact that they wanted more uncertainty, not less, about their HIV status. But it took so long for my brain to think about uncertainty being a good thing, because I was so convinced from the literature I've read, so many studies that had showed me that uncertainty, those articles gave us a frame, and they give us a frame from a very particular community, a very particular sort of value set. And so it takes quite a bit, even for us that are from communities that this doesn't even apply to. I mean, it's that invisible to challenge that knowledge that we have, that we've sort of taken as truth, certainly as grad students. And so I urge all students where that doesn't resonate to think about the ways it doesn't resonate, and to think about what needs to be changed for it to resonate for your community. because that's an essential part of the question specifically. I know I didn't, in fact, but I would just say I don't have an answer to that except to keep on that, because that voice of your voice, that community's voice, is essential, and we need to find a way to get it out there. And so thank you for bringing it up.
We'll take one more question and then I'll wrap this part of the closing ceremony up before we go to our next part. Cheng.
Great. I just have a quick question. I don't think I'm the only one. Is the research you've been referencing published? Because I want to cite it so much already.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was recently published, and I'd be happy to share, to share the reference. And I don't know what I'm going to have the PDF, so I'm happy to share the PDF, but I'm not sure the book authors, it's part of a book. It's part of actually a really great book on inclusivity in organizations. But yeah, I'm happy to, I'll find it and post it in the chat. I'll post the chat in the reference in the chat.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I guess if I may, just to wrap up this section, is besides saying thank you again, one of the things I really liked was when you talked about what we needed is those 3 points of structural change. I had a conversation a while back with Mohan Dutta, one of our professors here at Massey. And one of the things that, he and I've talked about is I would encourage any of our senior researchers here, and I know you've done this, I know others have done this too. One of the things that he and I have done also is sometimes to publish pieces in journals that may not be high ranked journals. Because one of the things it can do is those journals can get attention. Sometimes it can basically bring readers to those journals. And that's one of the structural changes that can happen when people are a little further along in their career and aren't needing certain kinds of impacts. That's one of those things that I can recommend. That's an easy structural fix. Another one you mentioned is promoting non-Google scholar kinds of journals. But another thing too we're finding, particularly if you look to Southeast Asia or Australasia and Europe, but particularly this region, is the push on SSCI journals and also Shanghai ranked journals, but also publishing in ones that aren't. Over the past few years, for example, the Journal of Intercultural Communication Research was not ranked in certain indexes. And so people were publishing in it though. And now in SkyMago, it is a Q1 in SkyMago, which is really excellent, but it's not as Shanghai ranked. But so many journals that are good journals are not Shanghai ranked. Like the Quarterly Journal of Speech is not Shanghai anymore for communication. There's only 24 journals that count for Shanghai. And so it's really difficult to know this, but still publishing in journals that get those journals higher citations, higher rankings. And so doing that is part of playing that game. Also considering things like, if you can, open access, if you have the financial ability to do that, is something we can do. And also regional journals like in Australasia, Communication Research and Practice is one that really in this region gets a lot of downloads and reads. So considering the regional journals is another thing. So structural kinds of issues I would wrap up with. But I really appreciate this kind of conversation because it also does remind us about, publishing. It reminds us about research inclusivity. It reminds us about communicative inclusivity. It reminds us how we can bring groups together by what we're doing. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate this conversation. So once again, for everyone, it's another Zoom clap. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I do very much welcome any, find my email is easy to find. So if you'd like to continue the conversation outside, I'm happy to do that by email.
And I'm sure
I'll
there's
try to find the PDF and post it.
I'm sure there's other people in here too, as you're progressing with the mission for NCA. If you need contacts for folks, just let me know and I can put you in touch with anyone here. But I'm sure there's some folks here very happy to help you out.
Yes, please. And if you have ideas along the lines that I've mentioned about structural change, any ways we can address these things, please do send me, those thoughts.
Yes. So what I'd like to do now is move on to the next part of our program, I suppose, which is the awards. And before we name the awards, what I'd like to do is, Barbara, if you could, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if you could maybe just talk a little bit about the Park Awards and just introduce the Park Awards to all of our participants and really why they're called the Park Awards and everything.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right. Wow. Yeah. The Park Awards are named after one of the founders of WCA, Professor Myung-Suk Park, who was a Korean communication scholar. And for those of you who never got the privilege to meet and get to know Dr. Park, there are a few adjectives that come to mind. He was a very profound scholar, very, very interested in excellence in scholarship. But beyond that, when I think of Dr. Park, one of the things I think about is he was always such a gentle person. He would come across as being very quiet, but very thoughtful. And when he spoke, it was very profound because he would speak from the heart. And that's one of the things that I really, really remember about my associations with Dr. Park. And I think one of the reasons that Dr. Park founded the Park Awards, and it comes from the Park family, is because he really wanted to support excellence in international and intercultural communication. And through the research award, also through the presentation awards, to recognize scholars whose first language may not be English, and I think that fits very well in with some of the previous conversations of the session, but yet who were very effective communicators. And so he was very proud to be a founding member of WCA, and it was very important for him to support the mission of WCA through the founding of the Park Awards.
Thank you very much. I think it's just really good to let folks know really that what the Park, where the Park Awards come from. And so we don't just name it, we don't just give an award out and not tell you the history of an award. I think it's good for an organization to really understand its history. So that's why I wanted Barbara, who as also a member of our executive committee, to have that moment to talk a little bit about that. So we have, there's two different, we have the paper awards and we have our presentation awards. And so I'll turn things over to our Secretary General, who will go through the awards. We also have a third award, the Park Service Awards. We have 3 awards to give out, or 3 sets of awards to give out. And I will turn things over to our Secretary General, who is going to lead this process. So, Cheng Zheng.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I'll be quick. So we have 2 types of awards I'll be announcing. So it has been a really fierce competition. I want to say there are more than 10 people want. First, I'm going to talk about presentation awards. There are more than 10 presentations being evaluated. First, I want to thank our reviewers for volunteering your time to provide your service to us. And I'd also give the winners an opportunity to speak a few words if you're here. So the first winner, there will be 2 winners for the presentation awards. The first winner is Fan Wan from Georgetown University. Is Fan here? Because I don't see her name. So, okay. The second winner is Diago Rahmani from Massey University. So Diago, share a few words if you want.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for this honor. I'm really, really honored to be considered for that. And in my research, basically, in my presentation today, I talked about that how, along with the changes that happens in our world, we need to review the measurements that we are doing all the time to make sure that the measurements that we have, the qualities that we measure are accurate, and based on them we have valid theories and we have valid information for the people who make the policies. Thank you very much for this time, and I'm very, very honored. Thank you.
Congratulations, Diego. Very happy for you. Okay, I'll be moving on to our paper awards. So there'll be 2 full paper awards. The first winner or winners, they're Audra Diaz Lawson and Stuart John Lawson from Leeds Becker University. They've won the paper from the quantitative category, and there's another winner that's from the qualitative category, and the paper is titled Intercultural Communication, an example of the Perham State University, and the winner is Alexandra Getson. Sorry for butchering name. I think Alexandra is here. Congratulations. Do you want to say a few words to us?
Thank you. It has been a very good experience for me, and I think for me it's just the first step in the area of intercultural communication. So I'm thankful, and I wish you luck, dear colleagues.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think Alexander is a student. You totally deserve this. Congratulations. Alrighty. Those are our presentation of full paper winners. And next we'll be presenting Park Service Award. I'll be handing this over to our past WC President, Caroline Hatcher. Caroline, please take over.
Thank you. No, it's on. Well, good afternoon. Today, actually, it's about 4 o'clock here, so in Australia. So today I have the honour of presenting the Mong Sok Park Distinguished Service Award. And this award was created by Dr. Carolyn Callaway Thomas in 2015 to honour people who have had a significant contribution to the WCA over their careers, or for particular reasons, you know, such as peacekeeping or academic leadership and so on. And in 2015, because Professor Park, whom Barbara has just spoken about, had such a wonderful contribution to our association, Carolyn and the executive team were thrilled to present that award to Professor Park. And so for this time, we are going to honour another very significant person for WCA, and that is, we're going to present the Mong Sok Park Award to Dr. Barbara Monfils. So I'd like to just very quickly tell you a couple of things that demonstrate why this woman should have this award. So the first is that Barbara has been an active member of WCA since 1985. In fact, I read on her CV that she has been to every WCA conference since 1985. That in itself is quite a wonderful achievement when you think that the conferences have been all over the world. So she's been around the world. She knows a lot about intercultural communication, if for no other reason than that she has been to learn so much from all of the wonderful people we have in our association. Barbara has been on the executive. She's been she's a former president, a former secretary general, and of course, a lot of you now know her through her work as our chief financial officer. So she has given a lifetime of service to WCA. At a personal level, I wanted to say that I followed Barbara. First of all, she asked me to be her Secretary General, and that was really the first time anyone from outside the US had an official executive role. And when she asked me, I was quite shocked because I'm from Australia. And so we, wow, how come? And so it was a most wonderful honor. And then I took on the role of president following Barbara. I would never have been able to move into the association and do that without the extraordinary mentoring that she took upon herself to offer me. Greatly generous, kind, everything about Barbara that all of you know. I wanted to highlight that there was a supporting letter from I nominated Barbara actually. So there was a supporting letter from Patsy McCarthy, but also there was a nominating letter from Antoinetta in South America. And as she is one of the younger, earlier members of the association, I wanted to mention that she and many of the newer members expressed their deep appreciation to Barbara for her kindness and welcoming spirit. And we all thank her for her ongoing hard work over many, many years to make our association special. So can I just say again, congratulations, Barbara, you deserve this award.
Barbara, do you want to say anything, please?
What can I say? Thank you. I'm not quite speechless, but pretty close to it in this regard. Now, obviously, WCA does mean a lot to me, and it's really helped me in so many ways over the years, and the friendships that I've developed through my work with WCA, and just being able to experience different cultures throughout the world in terms of supporting WCA's mission. The sense that through this face-to-face interaction with others, we can make a difference, and that's what the mission of WCA is about. So I've just been honored to be a part of WCA for all these years, and to thank all of you, my colleagues, for making it such a pleasure a part of WCA. Thank you.
Congratulations again. It was our honor to have you. So when I took on this role, I was like, I really can't take on this role without a CFO. That's Barbara. So, so that was one of the conditions pretty much. So I'm so proud that we have Barbara here. So.
Well, Stephen, I figured out, I've been active in WCA now for 36 years. So you have a few years to go.
Well, thank you. What I'd like to do is basically now we will do a quick wrap up and we are done, folks. Let me just say, I've already said thank you so much, but I have to thank again the executive committee, the board, and everyone who made this happen. There was an NCA, which I believe called the Unconventional Convention. I forget what year it was, I forget what theme that was, what year that was for that theme, but I had to move chairs because sorry, it got dark really quickly. It was an unconventional convention, folks. But instead of canceling 2021, we couldn't let that happen. We had to get together still and see each other this way. And I'm glad we did. I was able to go to as many panels as possible, saw some great interactions. I've received wonderful emails from people asking for, could I get a copy of that panel? Could I interact with this person? Thus far, I counted this morning, I've had, I think, 52 emails from people asking for the opening ceremony or making sure they could get this panel because they were sleeping or they overslept or they misread the time zone or all these different things. And you know what? That's great. It just shows even further the extra interaction people can have after the fact. And so soon we'll be working with the IT department here at Massey to put the recordings online in different ways so people can interact. And I know Ilira in Kyrgyzstan and Tatiana in Russia and other places, our Malaysian colleagues and others can put these up for people to see free of charge. So anyone can learn, observe, benefit from these interactions. And I'm really happy about that aspect so that people can learn from this. So I have to say again, thank you so much. The board will be reaching out to members about 2023 and looking at where we can be together face-to-face and 2025, locking down those 2 locations as soon as possible so we can all be together. So with that, I will, as president, unless there's, also the board will be having a board meeting shortly. We're doing the board meeting by Zoom that way. I didn't want to put that during the conference. I wanted to do it after the fact so we can talk about next steps. So I'll be reaching out to everyone then for the more formal business. But with that, what I will do is, as president, unless there's no other last minute business from folks, going once, twice, sold. What I will do then is I will officially close this 2021 WCA, our first and hopefully only virtual conference we have to have. Thank you so much, everyone from around the world. Stay safe, all the best. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.